Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here. And welcome to Monday's edition of the dceu Daily. I'm going to be rather controversial and upset a lot of my fellow dceu fans. I expect a lot of you to unsubscribe to this channel. But as I keep on saying, I have to be honest with myself. And with no big dceu news right now, because I've reacted to the Batman and Batfleck situation, so I'm blue in the face. So I want to talk about something. Do you remember what happened after Batman versus Superman? The hatred. I felt really alone for loving that movie. But then I remember discovering kind of channels like the dceu podcast. I'm sure you've discovered those guys. They analyse the films in such a beautiful way. Samuel Oten, isn't it? Great guy, by the way. And then I discovered Ping Pong Flicks, Chris Wong Spencer. I remember watching his video when he sat there watching, he did commentary for Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. All of a sudden, I felt part of a community. I didn't feel so alone. And that's always a good thing. So that they were good times because, as far as we knew then, Zack Snyder was making Justice League. This thing was still going ahead the way it was. Obviously, we've got big changes now. Zack Snyder is no longer involved. But after we saw Justice League, our community became very, very ugly. It became divided. There was this hatred and blame culture for Geoff Johns. To be honest with you, I was shocked how everyone blamed the Geoff Johns for this mess. Geoff Johns tried to talk to them during Man of Steel. He tried to explain to them, yes, he liked what they were doing, but they needed to do certain things to kind of attract the diehard DC fans, to kind of, lighten it up in places, not make it into the MCU, because, like it or not, DC Comics are not just one thing. They're dark, they're light. As I said before, universes within universes. So Geoff Johns came out before Justice League and made it clear that he tried to get a word in and nobody would listen to him. Because we know Christopher Nolan was protecting Zack and his vision. And that's okay. But then what happened was this blame culture. Anyone who knows anything about DC Comics and their characters and their history knows how important Geoff Johns has been to DC Comics, to Green Lantern and many other characters. He's been amazing. He's a really, really good storyteller. We all kind of were trying to force him to become Kevin Feige, to become this big leader who could construct the DCEU, but be a part-time leader. Run this and make it successful, but allow Zack Snyder to do whatever he wanted. How was that ever going to work? You either run it your way or you can't. And the problem is with the DCEU, before Walter Hamada came along, too many cooks were spoiling the broth. So what happens after Justice League? They sack Zack Snyder and Geoff Johns gets the blame because his name was on the door. I know for a fact Geoff Johns didn't remove Zack Snyder. I know that. But Geoff Johns has an opinion on the way DC stories should be told. Maybe he doesn't agree with the way Zack Snyder did it. I don't think he's alone there. I love those films, but we have to be honest. If you were closing your eyes and you read a DC Comics, you wouldn't imagine Superman snapping somebody's neck, would you? I'm one of the few people who wasn't really triggered by that, and I'm a massive Superman fan, right? I've read the comics, I've watched the movies. I was obsessed with Smallville, still obsessed with Smallville, by the way. But when you look at it, the blame game being played on Geoff Johns just didn't make sense. It had no logic to it. Just think about it. It wasn't Geoff Johns who decided that Justice League could only be 2 hours. Actually, 1 hour 59 minutes to be precise. Geoff Johns wasn't making these decisions. The truth of the matter is, Warner Brothers were between a rock and a hard place because of the reaction to Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad. Wonder Woman had worked for the mainstream audience, And there was a reason for that. There was a reason. Now, Zack had a lot to do with Wonder Woman, but ultimately Zack Snyder didn't write or direct the Wonder Woman movie. Yes, he cast Gal, and it was a great piece of casting. In fact, everyone he's cast has been amazing, and I wish we could keep them all. Things are going to be changing. They can't remove Jason Momoa, whether they want to or not, because Aquaman is the top 20 most successful films of all time. I think that's domestically, by the way. I'm not sure globally. But he's done, the film has done really well. Aquaman's really successful, and that's amazing for a grade Z superhero character. A character everyone thought was a joke. It's amazing. It's an amazing success story. But I'm not into blame. And I was just, even though I was disgusted with what happened with Justice League, I was so underwhelmed by the theatrical cut. I was disgusted by the upper lip CG on Henry and that cringy grin Batman makes when Superman turns up. I was disgusted by the things you were disgusted by. But to blame Geoff Johns is just illogical. Geoff Johns has proven. You go and watch his episodes he wrote for Smallville. Legion, Absolute Justice, Booster. These are fabulous episodes. Fabulous episodes. You watch those episodes and tell me he can't write live action. The point is, everyone, including the fans of Warner Brothers, wanted to make Geoff something he wasn't. A leader. Geoff isn't a leader. Geoff is someone who started on the film set with Richard Donner and somehow found his way to DC Comics. And he's told so many beautiful stories. Look at his rebirth. Look at the DC rebirth and his involvement in that. It's beautiful. The man is a beautiful storyteller. That's been proven. But he isn't a constructor of an orchestra. You just watch him now with his little production company, with Green Lantern Corps, right? That film's going to be awesome because he's developing it. He's been left alone to make that movie. That's what Geoff should be doing. So I did get into arguments with fellow DCEU fans, always starting a sentence with, I'm as upset with Zack's departure as you are. I'm upset that we yet haven't seen the Snyder Cut. But to blame Geoff Johns. Geoff Johns is a nice bloke. He's a brilliant bloke. Just by looking at the guy. And you believe he would do anything to hurt the DCEU. It's his dream to have a great live action franchise. But whether you like it or not, the DCEU of Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, and the Justice League movie didn't work for the hardcore DC fans. It didn't work for the mainstream audience. And as a business, that puts the studio in a really difficult position. We're lucky we got those movies. We can watch them whenever we want. That's great. So now we've got this split in the DCEU fandom. Some of us wanted to stick with Zack Snyder. Some of us are excited with the future. I keep on hearing boycott this, boycott that. Do you remember how everyone was going to boycott Aquaman? If everyone boycotted Aquaman, then how comes it's in the top 20 most successful box office hits of all time? A lot of people say they're going to boycott things and don't. I was sad that Zack lost his daughter. I was sad that he was thrown off the Justice League project, which I think we know now. I'm sad that we never saw his cut. I'm sad we never saw his 5-movie arc. I'm sad we're never going to see Justice League 2 and his vision for that. But I have to move on. I can appreciate him and, follow his career. But am I just a Zack Snyder fan? Or am I a fan of Superman and Batman and all the DC characters? The truth is I'm a bigger fan of DC and Superman than I am of Zack Snyder. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate him. That means I've made my choice. I can't leave this franchise behind. It's hard enough for me not to watch the Arrowverse shows because they've become so SJW. Horrible, horrible anti-man political propaganda now on that franchise. And that started off in the first 4 years as awesome. 2 awesome years of Arrow. 2 awesome years of The Flash. Then they went SJW. It hurts me to turn my back on that. But I have to. Because it just doesn't work for me. So I know what it's like to boycott something. But I'm not boycotting it. I'm not watching it because it's crap, because it doesn't work for me. And every time I see people talk about it or I see a trailer, I'm so tempted to go back to it, but I can't. So you know what I did? I started rewatching Smallville. I watch an episode a day. I'm on season 5 now. Beautiful show. That was a show that actually cared about the fans and did things for the fans. And I appreciate it. It was back at a time where, Hollywood wasn't triggered by who was the president of the United States. I don't like him either. But to destroy a whole industry, a beautiful industry, because of one idiot is beyond me. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Geoff Johns. I think the things that was said about Geoff Johns were terrible, disgusting, personal attacks. And at the end of the day, even though him and John Berg were running the franchise, they didn't have the keys to the kingdom totally. Look, this is Warner Brothers' baby. Warner Brothers can do what they want. And I think this is what people don't understand. Do you think that Steven Spielberg didn't used to work closely with Universal when he made E.T.? Didn't have to listen to them? Do you really think that when he made the first Jaws, he was walking around saying, it's my vision, I do what I want? Of course not. He had to make concessions for studios. Even Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin had to make concessions for studios. Sir Laurence Olivier had to make concessions for theatre companies. That's the way it works. They hold the keys. They hold the purse strings. So we were all kind of treating Warner Brothers like a cancer after Justice League. But it wasn't actually Warner Brothers' fault. It wasn't. It was partly ours. It was partly the pundits and the scoopers. We all wanted different things from the DCEU. Dark, light, comedy, the MCU. Nobody could make their bloody minds up. So in the end, Warner Brothers had to do something. They had to say, do you know what? We put Chris Nolan in charge of this. He's put someone in charge who has divided a fandom that's stopping us from making the financial potential that we can make from this property. Yes, it is about business, but Warner Brothers have a history of giving directors creative freedom. They did it with Zack. They allowed him to have creative freedom with Man of Steel. They didn't mess with that movie. Now, Batman v Superman was a little bit messed with. It got cut down a little bit too much. But in truth, credit to Warner Brothers, they allowed the Ultimate Cut to come out. But I think the reason they put their foot down with the Snyder Cut, because they saw a pattern emerging. We had an extra cut of Batman v Superman. We had an extra cut of Suicide Squad. You can't keep on having people making films who and then go back and give extended cuts. It's ridiculous. It was becoming a bad joke. DC films were becoming a bad joke. So I'll repeat that I love Batman v Superman. I love Man of Steel. I even like Suicide Squad. And there's elements of the Justice League that I absolutely love. Probably mainly the shots that Zack put in there. And I can always go back to those films. But I want a DC film universe that every DC fan can go and watch and love. Instead of this hatred, right? Instead of this hatred. So by Walter Hamada coming in and making the changes he's going to have to make, I will accept them. I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed Ben Affleck as Batman. I thought his Batman was better than his Bruce Wayne. He didn't work for me as Bruce Wayne. But anyway, I think he was a really good Batman. A lot of you think he's the best Batman. I still think that Christian Bale is the best Batman. Mainly thanks to what Christopher Nolan did. I mean, I think Batman Begins, this is an unpopular opinion actually, I think Batman Begins is a better movie than The Dark Knight. And I think that because Batman Begins focuses half of its film on Bruce Wayne's character fleshing out and the other half on Batman. That's never been done before and it works. So that's my favourite film. I love The Dark Knight and I think I love the outline concept of The Dark Knight Rises. I just think there was no point of Selena Kyle and the Catwoman version was just crap, and the ending of them living happily ever after really triggered the hell out of me. But I think Bale's the best Batman. But Affleck was a really good Batman. But I don't think he was that good that I'm upset that he's not Batman anymore. I think we do need a younger Batman. We need a Batman we can follow from stage one. Now, I think Matt Reeves is going to be clever here. Nobody wants to see another Batman origin. So probably it will be referred to what happened to him when he was a kid, but I don't think we'll go down that line again. You see, some of you are really upset and you're talking about boycotting the DCEU. Matt Reeves, one of the greatest creators we have in this industry, is running Batman. Aren't you a little bit intrigued? Aren't you a little bit excited to give this a chance? Because I think you'll be missing out if you start boycotting things. We can still be loyal to Zack Snyder. We can still fight for the Snyder Cut. I'm still fighting for the Snyder Cut. I still want the Snyder Cut. But ultimately, I want DC films to be a success. That's why I'll be supporting Shazam, which I've seen a test screening for, which I was very impressed by. And I think you should definitely go and see it. That's why I'll be supporting the Joker movie, which is not part of the DCEU, but the Joker is one of the best DC villains ever. Not just the best DC villains, one of the best villains, right? And this is why the late, great Heath Ledger won a posthumous Oscar after he died for playing that character so well. The Joker is a very important character, and I can't wait. I think Walter Hamada's plans for the future are awesome. Some of them I know and I can't talk about. Some I don't. But the most important part is the plans I don't know about. And that really excites me. So I can always appreciate the legacy of Zack Snyder at the birthplace of the DCEU. As a Superman fan, it's really special to me that Man of Steel was the first movie of the DCEU. But I think we need to be honest. And an honest person says that Geoff Johns is a legend, a genius, and it was not his fault that Justice League failed.